I wanted to thank you for your books. Um, I I've never been, I wasn't raised with religion, never been a quote unquote, spiritual seeker or anything like that. Um, and for some reason, I don't remember what happened, but I stumbled onto, depending on no thing. Um, I think it was about a year or so ago, and I stumbled onto it before I stumbled onto 4T, and I was reading it, and I also became sick. And it was like the kind of sickness where they put me in quarantine because everything looks like COVID in a pandemic. It turned out that wasn't it. And so there was this one fine morning where I went into cardiac arrest in my living room in front of my husband. Um, and so I actually called 911. And that was a moment where it was really a moment to moment thing. Like it became so undeniable that every moment was just so completely unique. And there was absolutely no guarantee that another one was coming. There was no knowledge that that there was anything next. There was just a sort of life was like being on a dimmer switch. Um, and and I can remember locking into the eyes of the paramedic, and just every moment was an acute moment, and it was the most precious thing in the world, and it was potentially the last. And it just so happened that I had that book, and after I was taken to the hospital, and actually, obviously, here I am. I survived, but I had my daughter bring that book to me in the hospital, and I wanted to thank you because it really helped me to make sense. I've had these experiences since I was a child where I always felt like I didn't see the world the same as others. But I was always really curious and didn't see things the same way. So after this event, I can also recall being in the hospital. It was COVID. No one was allowed to see me. People didn't know what was up with me. Nobody knew, aside from like my husband who was there when I collapsed, and my daughter. Nobody knew I was there or anything. And I saw what the world was like basically in my absence. And this whole thing about the death sort of just became um, very much almost like a relief. Like they're just there, it is, and it's going to happen, and I don't have to worry about it. What it'll happen when it happens. It's like you get it when you get it. But I saw the world fine in my absence, and I was unnecessary. And I was completely alone with every single thing, and all I had was DONT and my own mind. And it was a real changing experience. So I really wanted to come on today. I'm new to your work, and this is my first time participating with the group. I'm new to the Facebook group, but because it was so profound, and it really did help me to finally to understand um, what awakeness was. I believe that well, I hate the word belief, but it is perceived by me that some of these separate perceptions that I have just simply are a function of perhaps awakeness. So I wanted to ask you about that, and then I did really truly want to thank you because the books that you made were really helpful at a time when I had a lot of serious questions and a lot of unique experiences, and it helped me to make sense of everything that was coming into me, all these new inputs that I'd never experienced before and didn't quite know how to handle as they were all coming at me faster than I knew what to do with.
Okay, that's a great report. Some of these near-death experiences are really helpful. A lot of people gain perspective and understand that dying is really no big deal. It's just going to happen when it does, as it does. We seem to be so afraid of not being anymore, but there's really nothing to lose. I mean, we live as we do until we don't anymore. That seems to be the situation for all of us. And I think part of being awake is just accepting that. It's okay. I don't have
It
to.
actually feels like a relief.
Yes, it's a
It's
great relief.
absolutely, it's freeing.
It is.
There's just there's just nothing to do.
Mhm. So my wife has a serious allergy to sesame seeds. So she has been in the emergency room 4 times, one time in a coma, and the other 3 times gasping for breath in an anaphylactic shock. And a couple of those, the doctor was shaking his head, looking at the other doctors and saying it doesn't look good. And I was standing there observing this, and I looked into her eyes and I saw a moment when she wasn't really there anymore, and then she came back. So later, when we talked about it, her experience was that she saw me looking at her with concern, and then she didn't anymore. It was okay. Everything was okay. So I think that's really good information. Everything is okay. The end of it.
Yeah.
You may suffer and be afraid to a certain extent, but the end of it, according to her report, is everything is okay. Bye, goodbye, Robert. Everything's okay.
Yeah.
And
I, I would I would agree. It was okay. I was just staying focused, and if the next moment didn't come, then it didn't come.
So I think that's a far better interpretation of a near death experience than the one that says, I was still there, I died. No, you didn't die. You came close to dying. I died, and I was floating in the room looking down at myself. Yeah,
Maybe that happens to somebody, but it wasn't my experience.
I think that does happen, but you're not dead when it happens. You see, yes, it's a near death is not death. And these people that use that to talk about souls and heaven and all that, that's a bad interpretation, I think, that gives people a false idea that there's going to be some afterlife, and there's actually no evidence for that at all. None.
Continuum and it was, in between these various episodes, it was a very interesting thing because the damage I sustained made me for quite some time aware of literally every single heartbeat. And I think most of us, when we meditate, we focus on the breath, but I mean, literally none of us really feel every heartbeat. And that was a really unique experience. And if that didn't lock in to me the excuse me, the experience of a moment, and not knowing, each heartbeat was precious because it was a moment, and I didn't know if I'd get another.
Mhm.
It was the most unusual thing I've ever been through, and something that I could look at and I could understand and say, oh yeah, so this is just kind of how it is, and this isn't unique to me, and this is just my experience, and this is reasonably the way it is for me. Like, I see the sun as orange.
Well, it's a great report. Thank you. And I'm glad the books have been helpful to you. That's really nice to hear.
They are, and I will continue to recommend that people take a look at them, and think deeply. And I do have a lot of appreciation for your work, and yeah, it is something that I do like to share with people if I believe that they may be, open enough, because I think they could benefit from it. You never know when you will.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Well, carry on, David.
Oh,